Chief Archivist Zalrin's talons clicked against the polished stone floor as he made his nightly rounds through the great repository. The massive library stood as the crowning achievement of the Galactic Confederation, housing knowledge collected across 12,000 star systems and nearly 18 million years of interstellar civilization. Tonight, like most nights, the vast chamber remained empty save for himself and the softly humming archival drones. Section 87 Delta 9 requires recalibration, he muttered to his personal assistant, a floating orb that dutifully recorded his every observation. The temperature variance is affecting the molecular stability of the Krithak scrolls. The assistant chimed in acknowledgement and updated the maintenance schedule. Zalrin paused at the entrance to the mythological archives, a small, rarely visited section containing what most scholars considered little more than spacefaring fairy tales. The section held a peculiar fascination for him, though he'd never admit it to his colleagues. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he passed his talon over the authentication scanner. The door whispered open, revealing shelves of ancient texts and data crystals deemed too fantastical to merit space in the historical records. Here resided stories of the quantum walkers, the crystal mines, and most persistent of all, the humans. Humans, Zalrin snorted, picking up a faded manuscript. The most enduring myth of them all. Every spacefaring child across the Confederation grew up hearing tales of the humans, a contradictory species said to be both terrifyingly aggressive and bewilderingly compassionate, technological savants, yet prone to self-destruction, physically fragile, but possessed of remarkable endurance. According to legend, they had vanished from known space millennia ago, either through catastrophic self-annihilation or deliberate exile. A soft alert tone from his assistant interrupted his thoughts. Incoming priority communication from Observatory Station Epsilon. Zalrin's dorsal spines stiffened in surprise. The deep space observatories rarely contacted the archives directly. Except, he commanded, his secondary hearts accelerating slightly. The holographic face of Observatory Director Kex materialized before him, her luminescent skin pulsing with what Zalrin recognized as extreme agitation. Archivist Zalrin, she began without preamble. We have detected unusual energy signatures from Sector 17 Omega, beyond the Crimson Nebula. The readings match nothing in our current databases. Zalrin's irritation was immediate. Director, while I appreciate astronomical anomalies, I fail to see how this concerns the historical archives. Because, Kex replied, her voice dropping to a near whisper, the energy pattern bears a 97.8% similarity to theoretical propulsion systems described in your mythological texts, specifically those attributed to humans. The manuscript slipped from Zalrin's talons, hitting the floor with a soft thud. Impossible. Those texts described theoretical technologies that violate at least 3 fundamental laws of physics. Nevertheless, Kex continued, something is approaching from beyond the Confederation's borders. Something big. And it's moving fast. Send me everything, Zalrin demanded, suddenly alert. And Director, speak of this to no one else until I've analyzed the data. After the transmission ended, Zalrin stood motionless, his mind racing. Then, with sudden purpose, he moved to the oldest section of the archives, the carbon-locked data vaults that predated the Confederation itself. Here, the temperature remained precisely 1 degree above absolute zero to preserve information storage mediums, so ancient that modern technology could barely interface with them. What he sought lay within Vault 7, star charts created by the founder species of the earliest interstellar alliance. Charts that contained peculiar markers pointing away from specific regions of space, accompanied by warnings in languages so old that only fragments had ever been translated. Fleet Commander Inflera stood motionless on the command deck of the Confederation flagship Eternal Vigilance, her scaled skin reflecting the holographic display that dominated the chamber. The massive screen showed thousands of unknown vessels moving in perfect formation through the darkness between stars. Magnify Sector 7, she ordered, her dual voice boxes creating the harmonic tones typical of Cyrillian military command. The image zoomed to reveal vessels of sleek, unfamiliar design, smooth curves where Confederation ships favored angular precision, dark metal hulls that seemed to absorb rather than reflect sensor scans. Most concerning was their movement pattern, a constantly shifting, fluid formation that military analysts described as organic rather than programmed. Status of Reconnaissance Squadron Delta. She asked her second-in-command. Commander Vex checked his neural interface. They've reached the outer boundary of the unknown fleet, initiating passive scans now. The command deck fell silent as data began flowing in. Thalera's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, the Cyrillian equivalent of a shocked expression. "These readings can't be accurate," she said. "Verify and recheck." "Already done, Commander," Vex replied, his voice tight. "The unknown vessels are manipulating localized gravitational fields to achieve their propulsion. Their speed capabilities exceed our fastest ships by a factor of 7. And their energy signatures," he hesitated, "they don't match any known civilization's technology." Thalera's claws extended unconsciously, scraping against the metallic floor. "Are they weapons?" "Unknown, but each vessel carries energy reserves that could power an entire Confederation battle group." The tactical display updated as a single vessel detached from the main fleet, accelerating toward the reconnaissance squadron. "Evasive maneuvers," Thalera ordered. "Pull our ships back immediately." On screen, the Confederation scouts banked sharply, engines flaring as they attempted to retreat. The pursuing vessel seemed to flicker, then reappeared instantly beside the lead scout ship. There was no weapon discharge, no aggressive action, just a precise matching of velocity and heading. "It's escorting them," Vex said, bewilderment evident in his tone. Thalera activated the secured channel to Confederation High Command. "This is Fleet Commander Thalera. I am declaring a strategic uncertainty event. Unknown fleet of approximately 8,000 vessels, approaching from Sector 17 Omega. Technology level exceeds Confederation capabilities. Request immediate assembly of the Defense Council." As she finished, a priority communication alert flashed on her console. From the Great Repository. "Commander," came the voice of Chief Archivist Zalarin, "I need to speak with you immediately regarding the approaching fleet." Thalera signaled for privacy, and the holographic screen shifted to show the Vexari archivist's concerned face. "I'm rather busy at the moment, Archivist," she said curtly. "I've discovered something you need to see," Zalarin replied, unfazed by her tone. "I've been analyzing ancient star charts with markings that match the current position of your unknown fleet. But more importantly, I've recovered a partial recording from the predecessor archives. The encrypted vaults. I thought those were unreadable. Most are, but this particular crystal responded to the energy signature data you sent to the Council. It activated automatically, Commander, as if it was designed to wake up when those specific energy patterns were detected." Thalera's spinal ridges stiffened. "What did you find?" Zalarin's image was replaced by grainy, ancient footage. It showed a massive space battle. Ships of varied designs fighting together against a darkness that seemed to consume stars themselves. In the foreground, a vessel bearing striking similarities to those now approaching Confederation space fired weapons of impossible power into the void. Zalarin hurried through the underground levels of the Great Repository, his personal assistant bobbing anxiously behind him. The ancient section he now entered had been sealed for centuries. Preservation chambers containing artifacts too dangerous or incomprehensible to display publicly. Authorization Zeta Prime 7. He spoke to the security field. Emergency research protocol. The barrier shimmered and parted. Inside, the illumination panels activated automatically, revealing rows of containment units. Zalarin moved with purpose toward the far wall where a single pedestal stood isolated from the others, surrounded by additional security measures. "This is highly irregular, Archivist," his assistant chimed. "These artifacts are restricted even to your clearance level." "Circumstances have changed," Zalrin replied, overriding the final security layer with his genetic signature. The Council has granted special dispensation given the current crisis. The pedestal's surface slid open, revealing a crystalline object roughly the size of Zalrin's palm. Unlike the uniform data crystals used by modern Confederation technology, this artifact appeared almost organic, its structure irregular and internally luminescent with a pale blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Zalrin carefully lifted the crystal, cradling it in his specialized handling gloves. According to the fragmentary records, this was a Vexeri ancestral memory stone, a technology his own species had abandoned millennia ago. The ancient Vexeri had developed methods to encode experiences directly into crystalline matrices, preserving perfect memories across generations. This particular stone had been found floating in space near the now restricted Crimson Nebula, among debris that predated the Confederation itself. Previous attempts to access its contents had failed, the interfacing technology lost to time. Until now, a violent tremor shook the repository, nearly causing Zalrin to drop the precious artifact. The emergency communication system activated throughout the facility. All personnel report to designated safety areas. This is not a drill. Planetary defense protocols have been activated. Zalrin's assistant projected a news feed showing chaos throughout the Confederation capital. Across the planet, ancient monuments that had stood silent for thousands of years were suddenly activating. Massive structures previously thought to be ceremonial or religious in nature, now humming with power and projecting enormous holographic displays into the sky. Similar reports flooded in from across Confederation space. On 87 worlds simultaneously, dormant structures were awakening. Each projected the same image, a detailed star map showing the approaching fleet's trajectory and a countdown clock. Zalrin clutched the memory stone tighter as realization dawned. "They're beacons," he whispered. "Warning beacons placed throughout our civilization, designed to activate upon the detection of specific energy signatures." His communicator chimed with an incoming transmission from Fleet Commander Inflera. "Archivist, are you seeing this?" Her voice was tense, controlled. "The monuments." "They're not monuments," Zalrin interrupted. "They're an emergency alert system left behind by whoever departed our region of space long ago. I believe they're human technology. I need you on my command ship immediately," Inflera ordered. "Bring whatever information you've uncovered. The Council is in disarray, and the unknown fleet has accelerated. They'll reach our outer defense perimeter within 12 hours. As if responding to his conversation, the memory stone in Zalrin's hand pulsed brighter, its inner light synchronizing with the beacon's countdown. Nexus 7 hung against the backdrop of space like a jewel suspended in darkness, a massive space station of unknown origin that predated the Confederation itself. Its impossible architecture featured smooth, flowing surfaces that seemed to bend light around them, creating an almost hypnotic effect for approaching vessels. For centuries, the station had been neutral territory, a diplomatic hub where species could meet without fear of conflict. Its automated defense systems, though never fully understood, had preserved this neutrality through countless political upheavals. Today, it would host perhaps the most significant meeting in Confederation history. Fleet Commander Inflera stood rigidly in the central chamber, flanked by representatives from the 7 founding species of the Confederation. Chief Archivist Zalrin fidgeted nearby, the memory stone concealed in a secure container at his side. Armed guards lined the perimeter, though all acknowledged the futility of weapons should their visitors prove hostile. "They're docking," announced the Chizeri representative, her compound eyes flickering with nervous light patterns. "A single shuttle." As agreed. The room fell silent as the airlock cycled. Inflera found her hand moving instinctively to her ceremonial blade, a gesture of comfort rather than practical defense. The inner door slid open, revealing a solitary figure. Captain Eleanor Chen stepped into the chamber with measured confidence, her movements fluid and precise. She stood shorter than any of the Confederation representatives, her frame seemingly fragile compared to the armored exoskeletons and reinforced physiology of those assembled. Yet something in her bearing commanded attention, a presence that filled the space despite her physical stature. "Representatives of the Galactic Confederation," she said, her voice clear and resonant. "I thank you for agreeing to this meeting." The universal translators processed her speech instantly, but Zalrin noted with shock that she spoke in perfect High Confederation standard, a diplomatic language that had developed long after humans supposedly vanished from known space. "You know our language," said Supreme Counselor Dexon, the gelatinous diplomat from Praxis Delta. Captain Chen's expression remained composed. "We've been watching, listening, learning. It was necessary to understand what you've become in our absence. What you claim is impossible," Neflera stated flatly. "If humans truly existed as a spacefaring civilization, our historical records would contain concrete evidence, not merely legends." A subtle smile crossed Chen's face. "Your records contain exactly what was intended, Commander. History is written by those who wish to shape the future." She raised her hand, and a holographic projection materialized in the center of the chamber, a three-dimensional star map of Confederation space. With a gesture, the map expanded to include regions beyond the known borders, revealing a vast area where no Confederation vessel had ever ventured. "For 3,000 years, we have maintained our watch from beyond the Crimson Barrier," Chen continued. "We left these stars not in defeat or extinction, but with purpose. We became myth by design, Commander." "Why?" demanded Zalrin, unable to contain himself. "Why would an entire species choose to be forgotten?" Chen's eyes found his, her gaze intense. "Because there are things in the darkness between stars that feed on memory, Archivist. Things that hunt through knowledge and shared history. To be forgotten was to protect both ourselves and those we left behind." She turned back to address the entire assembly. "But now, the void Leviathan stirs from its slumber. The old enemy returns, and so must we." "Preposterous!" High Counselor Vrenfel's voice boomed through the Confederation Council chambers. The massive Dralanar delegate slammed his armored fist against the ancient table, sending vibrations through the floor. "We are expected to believe that an entity capable of consuming entire star systems has remained undetected by our scientific instruments for millennia. That humans, creatures of myth, are our salvation." The emergency council session had stretched into its 14th hour. Captain Chen's revelations had thrown the political body into chaos, with factions forming rapidly among the 23 represented species. Zalrin stood beside Fleet Commander Neflera in the observer's gallery, watching the proceedings with growing unease. The diplomatic pleasantries of Nexus 7 had dissolved within hours of their return to the Confederation capital. "They refuse to see what's before them," Neflera muttered, her dual voice boxes creating a dissonant harmony that reflected her frustration. "Even with the beacons active across Confederation space, fear blinds them," Zalrin replied softly. "The implications of Chen's claims are civilization-altering." On the council floor, Minister Locks of the Chizeri hives raised her segmented limbs for attention. "The human captain has provided no verifiable evidence of this void Leviathan. We see only a heavily armed fleet on our borders making demands for military access to our sovereign territories. The prudent response is clear: unified defense." Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. Zalrin noticed something disturbing. Several council members who had initially expressed openness to Chen's warnings now sat silently, their expressions vacant. "Something's wrong," he whispered to Neflera. "Look at Councillor Ept. Yesterday he advocated for working with the humans. Now he hasn't spoken a word, and his skin pigmentation has changed subtly." Neflera's inner eyelids flickered in recognition. The same with Representative Jorux and Chief Minister Velen. Their behavioral patterns have altered since this morning's recess. A chill spread through Zalrin's extremities. "We need to leave. Now." As they slipped from the gallery, Zalrin's personal assistant projected a priority message from the Great Repository. The memory stone he'd recovered was emitting unprecedented energy readings. "Commander," Zalrin said as they hurried through the governmental complex, "I believe I know how to verify Captain Chen's claims." "How?" "The restricted sectors. The regions of space declared off-limits due to stellar instabilities over the past century. If the Void Leviathan has been approaching gradually, as Chen suggested, those areas would show evidence of its passage." Nefalera's expression hardened with resolve. "I can get us a scout vessel. Unofficial mission." 12 hours later, their small ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kauran Expanse, a region quarantined by Confederation authorities 27 years earlier following reported navigational anomalies. What they found defied comprehension. Where stellar charts showed a vibrant sector containing 7 inhabited systems and numerous outposts, there existed only a perfect sphere of absolute darkness, a void approximately 2 light-years in diameter that absorbed all electromagnetic radiation. "By the ancestors," Nefalera whispered, her scales flattening against her body in primal fear. The ship's sensors detected no mass, no energy, no radiation, simply nothing where something should exist. At the sphere's edge floated debris, fragments of vessels and stations that had attempted to flee whatever consumed the sector. Among the wreckage, Zalrin identified multiple emergency beacons identical to those now activating throughout Confederation space. The emergency alert pierced through every communication channel across the capital world. Civilian broadcasts terminated mid-transmission, replaced by the grim face of Defense Minister Colrin. "Citizens of the Confederation, this is not a drill. Colony World Nexus Epsilon is under attack by an unknown entity. All residents within emergency response zones should proceed immediately to designated shelters. The defense fleet has been mobilized. There is no cause for." The transmission cut abruptly, replaced by fragmented footage from the surface of Nexus Epsilon. Grainy images showed a darkness that moved with purpose through the colony's largest city, not a cloud or a storm, but something that seemed to consume light itself. Where it passed, structures and beings simply ceased to exist, leaving perfect voids in their place. In the command center of the Eternal Vigilance, Fleet Commander Nefalera watched the feeds with growing horror. Beside her, Zalrin clutched the memory stone, which now pulsed with blinding intensity. "Estimated casualties," Nefalera demanded. 8 million in the first hour, her second-in-command reported, voice hollow. "The entity is expanding at an exponential rate. At current trajectory, the entire planet will be consumed within 7 hours." Nefalera's scales darkened with determination. "Deploy all available vessels. Priority is evacuation of remaining population centers. Weapons authorize." "Commander," her tactical officer interrupted, "multiple unidentified vessels have entered the Nexus Epsilon system. Configuration matches the human fleet." On the main view screen, sleek ships of unmistakable human design emerged from faster-than-light travel, their formation tight and purposeful. Without hesitation, they moved directly toward the spreading darkness on the planet below. "They're engaging without authorization," someone murmured. "No," Zalrin said quietly. "They're doing what they returned to do." The human vessels deployed into a complex, 3-dimensional pattern around the affected areas. From their hulls extended arrays unlike anything in the Confederation arsenal, devices that emitted coherent fields of energy that somehow made the darkness visible, giving form to what had previously seemed like empty space. "The Void Leviathan," Zalrin whispered. "They're forcing it to manifest physically." Once visible, the entity revealed its true nature, a vast, undulating mass of tendrils and void-black surfaces that reflected no light. It reacted violently to the human ships, lashing out with appendages that passed through conventional matter, as if it weren't there. "Our weapons have no effect," reported the tactical officer as Confederation ships joined the battle. Energy beams and projectiles passed directly through the entity. The lead human vessel broke formation, diving toward the colony's main population center. The Eternal Vigilance's sensors identified Captain Chen's energy signature aboard. "What are they doing?" Flera demanded. Her question was answered as the human ship deployed smaller craft that raced toward the surface, creating protective corridors through the darkness. Where these corridors formed, colonists scrambled toward waiting evacuation vessels. "They're extracting survivors," Zalrin realized. "Their technology can temporarily repel the entity." Neflera made a decision that would later be called either the salvation or betrayal of Confederation protocol, depending on who recounted the history. All vessels coordinate with human ships, adopt their defensive formations, and focus on evacuation protocols. Weapons systems redirect all power to shields and engines. Across the battlefield, Confederation ships fell into patterns alongside their human counterparts. Where they worked in concert, the darkness retreated, if only temporarily. The emergency council chamber aboard the human flagship Defiance hummed with tension. Representatives from 17 Confederation species sat alongside human officers, an assembly that would have been unimaginable mere days earlier. At the center of the chamber stood a holographic projection of an immense, ring-shaped construct. "The Crucible," Captain Chen explained. Her voice steadied despite her obvious exhaustion. The rescue operation on Nexus Epsilon had saved millions, but the toll was etched in the dark circles beneath her eyes and the burn scars visible along her jawline. "Our greatest achievement and our final hope." Zalrin studied the projection with fascination. The structure's design incorporated technological elements he recognized from ancient artifacts across multiple species. "You've been building this since your exodus," he realized aloud. Chen nodded. 3,000 years of development. "The physics involved exceeds anything we could have achieved alone. We needed distance and time." Fleet Commander Neflera circled the projection, her tactical mind analyzing the structure. "This is a weapon." "Not exactly," Chen replied. "The Void Leviathan cannot be destroyed by conventional means. It exists partially outside normal space-time. The Crucible is designed to create a dimensional prison, a pocket universe where the entity can be contained indefinitely. If such technology exists, why has it not been deployed already?" asked Frex, the Tizari representative. "Since the attack on Nexus Epsilon, the insectoid species have become humanity's strongest advocates among the Confederation races." Chen's expression tightened. "Because the Crucible requires components we couldn't create ourselves, specifically crystalline power matrices that only form naturally in the plasma clouds of Confederation space, and neural interface nodes that utilize the unique properties of Tizari biochemistry." She gestured, and the hologram shifted to display schematics of these components. "We've studied your technological development for centuries, waiting for the necessary advances. The time has come. Together, we can complete the Crucible." Silence fell as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't returned seeking aid. They had returned because the Confederation had finally developed what was needed to end the threat permanently. Zalrin felt the memory stone pulse against his skin, where he'd secured it in a specialized pouch. Throughout the battle at Nexus Epsilon, the artifact had grown increasingly reactive. "Captain," he said, withdrawing the stone, "I believe this may be relevant to your efforts." Chen's eyes widened in recognition. "A memory stone. We thought them all destroyed in the final evacuation." She accepted the artifact with reverence, placing it on a scanning platform at the center of the table. The stone's pulsing light synchronized with the ship's systems, projecting a new hologram. The face of a human man in ancient military attire. Final log entry, Admiral Thomas Reis, Earth Defense Force. The recording began. "The evacuation is complete. Remaining ships have successfully breached the Crimson Barrier. This message is for those who will come after, human or otherwise." The holographic figure looked weary but resolute. "The entity we face cannot be defeated conventionally. Our scientists have developed theoretical models for a containment device, but implementation lies beyond our current capabilities. We leave these memory stones as guides for future generations. The Leviathan hibernates in cycles of approximately 3,000 years. When it awakens again, it must find us waiting. The message continued, providing technical specifications that matched Chen's crucible with uncanny precision. As the recording played, Zalrin noticed something extraordinary: genetic markers embedded in the data stream that corresponded perfectly with his own DNA sequence. The neutron star pulsed with lethal radiation, its gravitational field strong enough to tear apart any vessel that ventured too close. This deadly celestial landmark, designated Terminus Point by Confederation astronomers, had been avoided by all sensible spacefaring races for millennia. Today, it was their last hope. The combined human Confederation fleet assembled at the outer boundary of the star's influence, over 8,000 vessels arranged in a formation that Zalrin recognized from ancient star charts. At the center of this formation, the crucible hung suspended in space, its massive ring structure now complete after 72 hours of continuous construction. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Chen studied the tactical display where the void of absolute darkness approached relentlessly. The void Leviathan had consumed 3 more systems since Nexus Epsilon, growing larger with each absorption. Status of the dimensional anchors. Chen asked her executive officer. Final calibrations complete, Captain. The Tuzeri neural interfaces are online and functioning at optimal parameters. Chen nodded, turning to Fleet Commander Infalera and Chief Archivist Zalrin, who had become her most trusted Confederation allies. Your ships are in position. The Confederation battle groups will maintain the containment formation, Infalera confirmed, her scales gleaming under the bridge lights. We cannot penetrate the darkness, but we can herd it toward the crucible. Zalrin touched the control panel, where the memory stone now sat integrated into the ship's systems. The historical algorithms are aligned with current tactical patterns. Whatever connection existed between my ancestors and yours, Captain, it serves us well today. The discovery had been profound. Genetic markers in the Admiral's message that matched Zalrin's DNA had revealed that Vexari and humans had once shared a deep alliance. Some Vexari had even chosen to leave with the humans during the Great Exodus, their genetic legacy continuing in the distant colonies beyond the Crimson Barrier. All vessels, final positions, Chen ordered. The Leviathan approaches. Remember your training. Do not look directly into the void. Maintain neural shielding protocols at all times. Across the fleet, crews prepared for the most coordinated military action in galactic history. The Void Leviathan had proven impossible to destroy, but not impossible to manipulate. It's responding to the neutron star's energy signature, reported the science officer, moving exactly as predicted. On the main view screen, the darkness accelerated toward them, drawn by the powerful gravitational and electromagnetic forces of the neutron star. The fleet parted in perfect synchronization, creating a pathway that led directly to the waiting crucible. Crucible activation in 30 seconds, Chen announced. All ships prepare for dimensional shockwave. Zalrin felt a strange calm descend over him as the final countdown began. The memory stone pulsed in time with his heartbeats, its light now steady and bright. The darkness reached the crucible's perimeter, tendrils of void extending toward the neutron star beyond. As it passed through the massive ring structure, Captain Chen gave the final command. Initiate dimensional folding sequence. Now, energy cascaded around the ring, forming a perfect sphere of pulsing light. The darkness writhed within, suddenly constrained by forces it couldn't simply pass through. The Void Leviathan, for the first time in its ancient existence, was trapped. The crucible began to collapse inward, folding space around itself and the captured entity. Alarms blared across the Defiance as structural integrity warnings flashed on every console. The containment field is destabilizing, shouted the engineering officer. We need more power to complete the dimensional seal.